House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy has been selected by Republicans to be the next Speaker of the House. The California congressman overwhelmingly bested his sole challenger, representative from Arizona, Andy Biggs, by a 188 to 31 vote margin during a private conference meeting.
I'm proud to announce the era of one-party Democrat rule in Washington is over. Washington now has a check and balance. The American people have a say in their government. And this new Republican leadership team is ready to get to work to put America back on the right track. It was our commitment to America that we would create an economy that is strong, a nation that is safe, a future that is built on freedom, and a government that is accountable. And that's exactly what we'll do.
McCarthy won the nomination for the speakership by a simple majority. However, Biggs' challenge signals the Republican leader may have a tough road ahead to rally the grand old party after disappointing midterm results. Next is a vote for the entire House should McCarthy fail to get the full backing of at least 218 lawmakers. Democrats could thwart his rise to speaker. So in this secret ballot election to determine who is the leader of the Republican conference in the House, that is only a simple majority. That was never in doubt that Kevin McCarthy would win that. The fact that he has 30 people voting against him here does not matter. But does matter if those 30 holdouts, I mean, obviously they're not going to vote for Democrats, but they could cause some kind of wrinkle because for the speaker race, he needs the majority of the entire House.
Yeah.
Not a plurality,
and
a majority.
This is where the conversations about Liz Cheney, these like fever dreams that some liberals are putting out there about her becoming Speaker of the House are coming from. It's the fact that you need to get more than the 50% number, not just bare majority.
But those 30 people don't want, the people who voted against McCarthy don't want Liz Cheney. They think McCarthy is too much like a Liz Cheney, which is kind of ridiculous, but they want a more conservative. Well, we were talking, I should just share that we were talking to the break. You were asking, well, who is even more conservative? The words conservative and right-wing just no longer mean what they used to. They now basically have been redefined to mean most pro-Trump. Not even most pro the policies of Trump, but most willing to condone the kind of outrageous things he says, generally about the election and some other claims. So you could have someone who is like what is even the conservative position on, let's say, free trade? It used to be the conservative position was we should have unlimited free trade. The more free trade we can possibly have, the better. And kind of protectionism was a more democratic view. Now that those positions have kind of flipped. So there's a policy change going on. So it's hard to say what is the conservative view. But really the way we're talking about it, it's who is the so a candidate. So Carrie Lake is extremely conservative, even if because she actually voices the things Trump says. Not about policy. Yeah, she could have a more moderate abortion policy than someone else, and that I don't know that she does. But if she did, that wouldn't matter. That wouldn't matter. But so like Ron DeSantis was in support of a more moderate abortion policy, for instance, than the Georgia governor Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp wanted I think a 6-week cutoff. DeSantis, it's the 15-week cutoff.
I believe so.
So in a sense, Ron DeSantis on that issue would be more moderate than Brian Kemp. But in the discourse of how we describe these things, Ron DeSantis is quite conservative because he doesn't contradict Trump or go. Now he doesn't say the things Trump wants him to say. Whereas Brian Kemp, who actually stood up to Trump, even though he's a more conservative abortion policy, would be considered like a moderate or even liberal-leaning Republican, having nothing to do with underlying policy. It's just about how much you will say what Trump wants you to say.
Well, this why I was asking was in the context, obviously, of McCarthy versus Biggs, because Biggs is a Freedom Caucus guy, and McCarthy is someone who is known to have had a very positive relationship with Donald Trump. I was listening to a story just recently about how he apparently identified that Donald Trump liked the pink and red starbursts, a relatable position, and so McCarthy took to bringing him gifts of the pink and red starburst when he visited him.
Those are absolutely the top-ranking flavors. Nothing wrong there. Yeah, orange is gone. What is the other Starburst flavor?
Yellow.
Yellow.
Yeah, but here's the thing. So this is not someone who has had an acrimonious relationship with Donald Trump. But what you're saying is the difference is that Kevin McCarthy has moderated some of the election denial and some of the more extreme positions. What is interesting going forward, and having watched Trump's announcement speech last night, his announcing his indication that he's going to run for office, is that Trump also wasn't doing election denial. Trump also didn't mention abortion. He didn't do any of the Stop the Steal stuff. And so it's unclear to me what either of these camps' objections are, if even Donald Trump isn't being conservative as you've described.
I mean,
it.
Kevin McCarthy has been the leader of the House faction of the GOP for a while. So if you are someone who is very pro-Trump and wants to needs someone to blame, and you can't blame Trump, then you have to just blame the GOP establishment, who that is, and that is Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy. It's almost a guilt by association type thing. I don't know that he's actually done anything to really offend. He's certainly done a better job than Mitch McConnell. He has not turned off Trump people in quite the same way that McConnell has. So I think he will ultimately become the speaker. But it's been interesting to hear some dissenting notes from people like Matt Gaetz. We had Josh Hawley making claim. He didn't mention Kevin McCarthy specifically. Josh Hawley, the Missouri Republican Senate candidate, said something to the effect of, "This is the death of the Republican Party. We need to just restart it." Yeah, let's. I think we have that clip.
Yeah, well, with 219 seats, Republicans have officially clinched control of the House. Questions have arisen as to whether current House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will remain in Democratic leadership at all. She told CNN's Dana Bash Sunday that her decision will be based on what the Democratic caucus wants. Let's watch.
My decision will again be rooted in what the wishes of my family and the wishes of my caucus, but none of it will be very much considered until we see what the outcome of all of this is. But there are all kinds of ways to exert influence. The speaker has awesome power, but I will always have influence.
In the same round of Sunday morning show appearances, she told ABC's George Stephanopoulos that she does not intend to leave Congress.
Yeah, the contrast here, and I mentioned this yesterday, but the contrast between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party on these matters of leadership, it's mind-boggling. The way Democrats talk about any potential challenge to Pelosi, they act like she's Lord Voldemort. And if they speak her name, it will create problems for them down the line that they'll never recover from. No one's even willing to contemplate the idea of there ever being a challenge to Nancy Pelosi for speakership. Even people like AOC, who basically ran and rallied the left on the promise that she was going to be oppositional to Nancy Pelosi and wouldn't vote for Nancy Pelosi, when given an opportunity similar to the one that Republicans have now because of the narrow margins by which Democrats won in the last round, could have obstructed Nancy Pelosi. Progressives could have kept Nancy Pelosi from being Speaker of the House for as long as it took in getting any concession until they wanted until she ultimately bent the knee. They wouldn't even entertain the conversation. They wouldn't even talk about it, not a single one. And you heard Representative Khanna on the show yesterday. It's up to her. I respect her age. I respect what she's been able to do for the Democratic Party. There's just no appetite for it. And no one here is talking about reprisals.
She should just retire. She should spend time with her husband. They just went through a horrible thing. People just will not let go of power.
Yeah.
They will not let go of power.
Yeah, and Democrats pretending like this is about respecting and supporting Nancy Pelosi or not being ageist, I think they're really missing the forest for the trees here. We can't even have a conversation about who subsequent speakers might be on the Democratic side. And on the Republican side, they might not be successful in putting someone forward other than Kevin McCarthy. But the fact that there's even a conversation that's being allowed, I think, frankly, speaks to the health of the party. Now, some people might disagree and say this is Republicans in disarray. It's going to help them and hurt them in the long run. But there do seem to be so many ideological options for people with different ideological bearings within the Republican Party that's attracted to folks. And I got to say, a lot of people increasingly on the left don't see themselves represented anywhere within the Democratic Party. And I think that's going to hurt, especially if Joe Biden continues to disappoint on some key promises he's made.
Well, we will keep discussing this, and we'll have more Rising coming up next.